I just had to do my research, and I found out that yes, many groundhogs are rabid, and rabid groundhogs have been found in our neighborhood. Welcome to our channel. It's a fairly new YouTube channel, but we plan to pack it with stories and adventures about Rudy, the honeycomb dog. So go ahead and subscribe, stay with us, and come back regularly. As you know, Rudy and I moved up to the New York metropolitan area from Florida. We'd been living on the beach, pure Florida lifestyle, Florida climate. Basically, you don't have groundhogs in Florida. At least not that I'm aware of. Maybe you do, I don't know. But anyway, so about, I don't know, it must have been about spring. We were walking, normal walk. Suddenly I started seeing these animals like scurrying around my neighborhood. I had never seen anything like it in my life. And just every day, as me and my dog walked from our house to the dog park, we just suddenly started seeing these little animals. They were like massive rats, but kind of looked a little bit like otters, and you know, a little bit like beavers. And I was so confused until one day I was talking to another dog owner in the neighborhood, and one of them ran by, and I was like, what is that? And they were like, oh, that's a groundhog. So that was mine and Rudy's introduction to groundhogs. Now, Rudy just seemed fascinated by them. I mean, I was fascinated by them too, because I'd never seen anything like it. But he was just fascinated, and like whenever we went past this, there's just one particular spot where we'd see them, he would start walking slowly because he wanted to see if any were around. And then if there was one around, he would stop and he would just stare and stare and stare and stare and stare, you know. So then, you know, like as the weeks went by, we noticed that a lot of people in our neighborhood would actually, it was like a grassy area with benches, and they would actually go there at lunchtime and share their lunch with these groundhogs. And these groundhogs were like massive. I'm sure they were way bigger than they're supposed to be by nature, just because they were getting fed human food. But basically everybody in our neighborhood seemed to love the groundhogs. So anyway, one day I was at like a park. So this area where me and Rudy walk is kind of up on a hill. And then one day I took him to a park that's on the lower part of that hill. And he realized that whenever we see the groundhogs and the groundhogs run down the hill from where we are, they're running down to the spot where we were in the park. So they run from the upper area where we usually see them, and they always run down this hill. That day we were in a park that was at the bottom of that hill, and Rudy spotted a groundhog. I didn't think anything of it because Rudy was never aggressive at all. When he saw a groundhog, he just used to stop and look at them. So we're down in this park. I let him off leash. I always let him off leash in this certain park because it's quite enclosed. And usually I throw a ball with him and just allow him to really just run with all his energy and just run his heart out, you know. So this day I let him off the leash. I did see his ears go up like at a distance across at the far end of the park. Didn't think anything of it. And all of a sudden Rudy just ran full speed to the end of the park. Still didn't think anything of it because it was normal for him. But he ran into the bushes. Now that's something he doesn't usually do because he doesn't usually let me out of his sight. But he ran into the bushes, and I could hear like kind of a tussling sound. Still didn't think anything of it. And then suddenly I started hearing this noise. It was like, and I was like, oh no. And I knew at that point that he was with a groundhog. So I ran across the park and I was like, Rudy. And Rudy saw me coming, and Rudy, he never runs away from me. But I don't know, you don't know what goes on in a dog's mind, but I just think that he just thought he it was a toy. I think he saw it was a toy that just moved by itself. I think he was just fascinated, and by the time I got to him, he had the groundhog in his mouth, and just like as one of his toys. And as I got close to him, he just ran past me all the way down to the other end of the park where I had just run from. And while he was running, he's shaking the groundhog in his mouth like he does with his stuffed toys, you know. So I'm screaming, Rudy, Rudy, and I'm thinking to myself, oh no, like this is the day that I'm gonna lose my dog, because first of all, he never runs away from me, but this time he seemed so determined to get away. And he stopped at the end of the park, and he was shaking the groundhog in his mouth. So I ran back over to where he was, and I was like, he started to run again. So I said, Rudy, good boy, good boy. And that made him stop. And then I was like, good boy. And I managed to get him by the collar. And then I said, drop it. You know, I was like, look what you've done. And by that time, he had already killed the groundhog, and the groundhog literally just on the ground, 4 feet up in the air, and just dead as a doornail. And I was just like, I was so shocked, and I just like put him on his leash, and we just went home like quickly as possible, you know. And you know, it was a very quiet day in the neighborhood, but I was like, oh my goodness, like if anybody had witnessed that, from then on I would be known as the, you know, or Rudy would be known as the dog who killed the precious groundhog, because everybody in our neighborhood seems to love the groundhogs. But anyway, you know, he had 2 massive cuts on his nose where the groundhog, I don't know, it seems to me the groundhog must have bit him before he had a chance to grab the groundhog. And he just had on either side of his nose, like you could see the teeth marks from the groundhog. And so then I had to like do some research and go online and find out, okay, what the hell are these groundhogs? Do they have rabies, and is rabies in my area, and all of these kinds of things. And Rudy, he's vaccinated against rabies. But still, you know, I just had to do my research, and I found out that yes, many groundhogs are rabid, and rabid groundhogs have been found in our neighborhood, and it was just really worrying. So I cleaned out the cuts, and Rudy also was covered in blood, like the front of his down the front of his chest. He was covered in blood, so I had to give him a bath and just clean him up a bit. And it took about a week for those teeth marks to disappear from his nose. And I just watched him closely, because you never know. He's vaccinated against rabies, but you just never know. So I just kind of watch his behavior, see if there were any changes over the few weeks after that. But he was fine. It was no problem with him. So that's the story of how Rudy had a fight with the groundhog.